Welcome to our epic dive into history. Today, we strip away the glory of ancient Rome. Epic poems praise the brave men with shining swords, conquering foreign lands for the mighty empire. Yet behind the cheering crowds and golden eagles, a dark and tragic nightmare waited for the brave. Lacking modern pain relief and advanced medicine, the field medical tent was an absolute nightmare. Step inside the grim Roman surgeon's canvas tent, where surviving the cure was worse than the sharp blade. The northern frontier is a freezing wasteland, choked with heavy mud and spilled crimson vital essence. You are a hardened legionnaire, marching through the endless rain, fighting a brutal war for the emperor. The clash of iron and the cries of fallen men echo across the dark battlefield without any end. Suddenly, a sharp and terrifying impact shatters your focus, bringing you down to the cold earth. A rusted iron arrow has pierced deep into your thigh, tearing through muscle and scraping the solid bone. Your heavy armor, a proud symbol of Rome, now feels like a crushing weight pulling you into the mud. Dark crimson essence pumps from the open wound, mixing with the filthy soil beneath your trembling hands. Panic sets in as the icy grip of fate tightens around you, and the glorious empire fades away. You no longer care about silver medals or triumphs. Your only desire is to take another breath. According to ancient records, the mortality rate for deep puncture wounds in combat was massive. Desperation fuels your fading strength as you crawl over the silent bodies of your fallen comrades. Two surviving soldiers grab your heavy shoulders, dragging your broken body toward the rear guard lines. Every bump along the uneven ground sends agonizing shockwaves of pure torture up your torn leg. Your vision blurs as the massive shape of the Roman medical tent emerges from the thick, gray smoke. This is the Valetudinarium, the field hospital built to keep the emperor's war machine running. But to the broken men outside its canvas flaps, it looks exactly like the dark mouth of the underworld. The muffled cries of agony leaking from the structure can easily break any courageous man's spirit. Would you rather fade away peacefully in the mud, or face the terrifying surgeons in that tent? You have no choice, as your vision fades to black, and your loyal comrades carry you through the entrance. The smell hits you first. A heavy wave of physical decay, dried crimson stains and metallic rust. You are thrown onto a heavily stained wooden table, slick with the tragic ruin of previous men. The tent is dimly lit by flickering torches and braziers, casting long, demonic shadows on the walls. All around you, other soldiers are writhing in unspeakable pain, missing limbs and clutching deep wounds. Medical assistants, covered in tragic stains, move quickly between tables, holding down the frantic men. There is no quiet dignity in this dark place, only the raw struggle of humans fighting to stay alive. You violently shiver as they strip away your armor, exposing your pale skin to the freezing cold air. Your heart pounds against your ribs like a captive bird as a massive shadow falls over your helpless form. The Roman combat surgeon steps into the firelight, his heavy leather apron stiff with dark, dried stains. He offers no comforting smile or gentle word. He stares at you with completely hollow, distant eyes. To him, you are not a hero. You are just a broken piece of military equipment needing repair. This is the ancient world, long before the discovery of anesthesia or infection-killing drugs. There is no magical potion to make you sleep, no modern injection to numb the terrifying agony. An assistant forces a piece of splintered wood between your teeth, telling you to bite down very hard. Another pours a tiny splash of burning wine down your throat, the only relief the great empire gives. You choke and gasp, your chest heaving as the Medicus turns to a tray of terrifying, rusted tools. He selects a heavy iron tool, a pair of crude tongs designed specifically to pry open human tissue. Historians note that Roman medical tools were beautiful, but utterly brutal in their daily use. The surgeon does not wash his filthy hands. The concept of germs is completely unknown to this dark time. He steps up to the table, his massive fingers probing the swollen edges of your bleeding, open wound. A blinding flash of pain shoots through your body as he intentionally widens the torn crimson opening. You scream into the wooden block, tearing your gums as your back suddenly arches off the wooden table. Two heavily muscled assistants immediately throw their weight onto your shoulders and your healthy leg. They pin you down with merciless force, trapping you in a horrific nightmare you can never escape. The Medicus inserts the cold iron tongs deep into the torn muscle of your thigh, searching for the tip. You can feel the metal scraping against your living tissues, a feeling that defies all rational thought. Crimson flows over his hands as he ruthlessly digs deeper, trying to grab the barbed head of the arrow. Every twist of his wrist feels like a blazing fire consuming your wounded leg from the inside out. Roman texts written by Celsus explicitly told all surgeons to act without any pity or delay. He advised them to ignore the cries of the patient and focus entirely on finishing the grim job. The surgeon grips the iron arrowhead, but the cursed barb is firmly wedged against your shattered bone. With a brutal, sickening crunch echoing in your skull, he yanks the heavy instrument violently upward. The barb tears through the muscle, ripping away chunks of tissue as it finally leaves your broken frame. You spit out splinters of wood as a primal roar of pure agony rips through your raw, bleeding throat. The nightmare is not over. The sudden removal of the arrow has opened a massive, bleeding vessel. Bright red essence begins to fountain into the air, splashing across the surgeon's emotionless face. Without immediate intervention, you will simply fade away on this filthy table within a few minutes. The assistants press down harder, their sweaty arms trembling from the effort of holding you down flat. The surgeon inspects the catastrophic damage. The bone is crushed, and the wounded leg cannot be saved. He turns to his tray and calmly picks up a heavy, serrated blade that sends pure chills down your spine. It is a Roman bone saw, its iron teeth designed to violently rip through human skeletal tissue. Can you imagine staring at the heavy tool that is about to sever a part of your body forever? He positions the blade above the flesh, pressing the cold, jagged metal directly against your pale skin. The first vicious pull of the saw cuts quickly through the outer layers of skin and sensitive tissue. Your brain cannot process the massive pain, overloading your entire nervous system instantly. The surgeon works with brutal efficiency, driving the saw back and forth with heavy, rhythmic strokes. The horrific sound of metal teeth grating against your thigh bone fills the dimly lit, smoky canvas tent. Crimson essence sprays in rhythmic pulses, painting the wooden table and the surgeon's massive arms. You thrash wildly like a captive animal, but the strong assistants hold you with an unbreakable grip. Every single second stretches into an eternity of absolute torment in this terrifying room. With a sickening snap, the bone gives way, and the ruined half of your shattered leg falls to the dirt. But the cruelest part of ancient battlefield surgery has not begun. The bleeding must be stopped at once. In modern hospitals, doctors tie off blood vessels with microscopic sutures and incredibly fine threads. Here, in the damp mud of the field hospital, they use the only effective tool they have: raging fire. The surgeon drops the heavy saw and walks calmly over to the glowing brazier burning in the corner. He pulls out a thick iron rod resting in the white-hot coals until it glows a bright, blazing cherry red. The heavy iron is so incredibly hot, it sheds tiny glowing sparks into the dark, smoky air. The surgeon approaches the bleeding stump of your shattered leg without a single word of gentle comfort. He firmly presses the glowing red metal directly against your severed, violently pulsing vessels. The horrifying sizzle of burning human tissue instantly fills the entire medical canvas tent. A thick, nauseating cloud of greasy gray smoke rises directly into your wide and terrified face. Your entire nervous system violently overloads, shutting down your fragile ability to even think. You thrash with the strength of a dying wolf, but the massive assistants completely crush you to the wood. The white-hot iron seals the leaking blood vessels by completely melting the broken tissue together. This brutal method of cauterization saves your fragile life, but destroys your spirit completely. Some Roman surgeons preferred using boiling hot oil to achieve the exact same horrible result. They would pour a steaming iron bucket of scalding black liquid over the open, heavily bleeding wound. The intense heat instantly cooks the muscle layers, forming a thick, protective, burned and hardened crust. The agony is beyond any human comprehension, violently ripping apart the fabric of your mind. You pass out into a merciful darkness, finally escaping the torment of the bloody surgical table. The real battle for survival begins right after the brutal amputation is finally complete. Without antibiotics, deadly infection is a silent killer in the dark and damp Roman military camps. Many brave soldiers survived the brutal surgery, only to perish weeks later from a raging fever. The surgeon returns daily to check the wound, washing away the decaying and deeply tragic ruin. If decay sets into the blackened flesh, he must cut even higher up the shattered and broken thigh. You spend endless nights sweating on a straw mat, listening to other broken men begging for the end. The massive Roman Empire continues to expand, marching on the broken bodies of its loyal men. According to historical accounts, the mighty state provided very little care for disabled veterans. The emperor praises the dead as glorious heroes, but entirely forgets the deeply crippled survivors. After weeks of fever and terrible nightmares, your massive burned stump finally begins to slowly heal. The military formally discharges you from service, simply sending you away in a crude wooden cart. The journey back to your homeland is long, extremely painful, and deeply humiliating for a proud man. You arrive in Rome, a massive city that now feels entirely strange and deeply foreign to your tired eyes. You sit quietly on the weathered stone steps of a small, dirty house in the crowded and noisy city slums. Your torn, heavy armor has been replaced by a simple, frayed linen tunic of a truly poor peasant. Beside you rests a crude pair of wooden crutches, your constant companions for the rest of your tragic time. The missing leg is a harsh, daily reminder of the terrifying price paid for Rome's eternal glory. People walk past you in the busy street, avoiding your hollow, deeply traumatized, and haunted gaze. You are no longer the strong, fearsome soldier who who proudly marched out of these very ancient city gates. You are a broken shadow, a discarded piece of a massive and entirely uncaring military machine. When you close your eyes at night, the loud sounds of the glorious city instantly fade into the dark. You are quickly transported back to the freezing mud and the horrible stench of the tragic medical tent. You clearly hear the heavy scraping of the rusted iron saw violently tearing through your solid bone. You can still smell the sickening greasy smoke rising from the burning tissue of your own shattered body. This severe psychological trauma will follow you down into the cold, dark depths of your quiet grave. Roman medicine was undoubtedly a terrifying ordeal, completely devoid of any gentle empathy. The cold, emotionless surgeons operated like workers toiling in a deeply chaotic environment. But without their brutal, terrifying methods, countless wounded men would have undoubtedly perished there. They possessed a crude but effective understanding of anatomy and stopping fatal essence loss. Their harsh surgical tools laid the heavy foundation for the modern medical practices we have today. Every cut of the rusted saw was a terrible step toward saving a broken and fragile human life. Yet we must never forget the heavy price paid by the ordinary soldiers on the brutal front lines. Their silent suffering is entirely overshadowed by the glorious golden statues of the wealthy generals. History books talk of glorious conquests, but rarely mention the terrifying and stained wooden tables. Imagine a time when a simple scratch from a rusted blade could mean an incredibly slow and tragic end. The sheer willpower required to survive these epic operations is truly hard for us to comprehend. You look down at your heavily scarred stump, tracing the jagged, burned edges with a weak, trembling finger. The intense pain has vanished, but the deep, phantom sensation of the truncated limb remains quite strong. Sometimes you feel a sudden cramp in a heavy foot that was violently burned away a very long time ago. It is a trick of the mind, a lingering ghost haunting your broken body until the very end of your days. You survived the absolute worst of the war machine, cheating a dark and muddy battlefield departure. As you stare at the busy Roman street, you realize you left a piece of your soul behind in the cold mud. War is a hungry, merciless beast that devours young men and spits out hollow, broken, and empty shells. The medical tent was simply the tragic altar where these horrific and massive sacrifices were made. The true face of combat is not found in the grand marble monuments or the loud, cheering victory parades. It is found right here, in the deeply scarred flesh and the silent, weeping eyes of the truly forgotten men. A heavy rain begins to suddenly fall over the city, washing the dirty cobblestones completely clean. But no amount of water can ever wash away the horrifying memories deeply etched into your mind. You pull your ragged cloak tightly around your shivering shoulders, preparing for another dark, cold night. You survived the surgeon's deadly saw, becoming a living monument to the frightful cost of ancient war. The echoes of the fallen will forever ring through the dark, completely empty halls of your shattered brain. This is the cold truth of the ancient world, hidden beneath the glorious mythic tales of mighty Rome. We honor their immense and silent endurance by pulling back the dark, heavy curtain of history today. These brutal surgeons saved thousands using frightful methods, leaving men with deep and permanent trauma. Were they cruel operators of the past, or heroic pioneers of medicine? Share your thoughts down below. If you found this dark history fascinating, please hit the like button, share, and subscribe to us today.